Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the ill-advised 172nd episode of our first run on YouTube for House of Light, the expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the archaeologist. I'm recording this immediately after the last episode, but I'm definitely feeling quite fatigued. But I did work out a plan for how I was going to work my way out of the sort of the memory pickle that I'm in, and I thought it might be better for me to implement that rather than try to remember. So I've got a couple of conflicting items coming in. So we've got the wonderful shape that'll give us a satisfaction, so no worries about that. We've got the snare of the tree, collected proverbs of Aunt Mopsy, so that made a contradiction, which we already used up. We have got the Exorcist Field Manual, which will give us a contradiction, which was originally going to go to Door and Wall. And then we've got the Crossing to Noon, which will give us Salt. So we've got 30 seconds to generate the memories that we want. But the drawback that I've got here is that we'll have 30 idle seconds if I don't have one more memory to level up Metascape Reflections. So we'll use the Old Wound to save us for that. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to queue up everything we need for Desires and Dissolutions. So we'll take advantage of the fog. We don't really have anything else to go with for that right now, but just keeping that keeping in mind that we're already leveling it up, right? Sorry, we've got Desires and Dissolutions. Did I say great? Anyways, so we're using Desires and Dissolutions, so this will be level 6. So we've got fog right now. Satisfaction, so that's 2. Confounding Parable is 3. Contradiction is 4. Salt is 5. So I need one more memory, which will be Beguiling Melodies. Trying to decide. I think probably metal is the best one for me to work with here. Okay, so just to reiterate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 memories. So this is for the Metascape Reflections. This is for leveling up Desires and Dissolutions. This does incidentally mean that I have 3 memories left. So under normal circumstances, this might be something that I would use for resurgences and emergences and weaving and not working. Actually, if I think about it, I could use the core with... Because I've got a solace which I could apply to weaving and not working. Well, let's see if that works. In fact, I could also use the Tryst for that. You know what, let's give this a shot. So if we do weaving and not working, we can use the Cheerful Ditty to go for 1. I don't know if I have another heart that's not at risk of being overrun by Denzel, but it also doesn't really matter that much. So we'll do a storm. Alright, so what that does is now I won't use any of these to generate other things. Now, originally what I was going to do was make another Old Wound, but I have other ways of doing that. I don't need to... Actually, I can make the Old Wound using my Shaft. How do you do that, you ask? Well, we just go down to the Forge, Edicts Martial, brand new Old Wound. So we're out the money, but obviously we've got more than enough. Okay. And of course there's also things that Denzel may generate for us, but I'm not too focused on that. We don't really know, and at this point we've we're spoken for in terms of our elements of the soul. So what Denzel might be getting me is something that I can take overnight. Okay. The skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. Looked like something went away, which makes me slightly worried. Let's actually queue up the Meniscate. Nope. There we go. The Snare of the Tree, collected proverbs by Aunt Mopsy. Once in the wood we call a visit, twice in the wood we call a journey, thrice we call coming home. Every timber has its knots, the straight and crooked both. Every weave is more absence than thread. You can't keep nowhere out any more than you can keep somewhere in. When the cuckoo learns the nightingale's song, our sleep is sweeter than honey. An Exorcist's Field Manual, a practical guide to troublesome dead grounded in theory but with a clear focus on their disposal by the redoubtable Detective Ostiary Wheellock of the Suppression Bureau. The dead usually avoid light as the most immediate manifestation of eternity, which has no place for death. However, those dead uplifted by gold, that is to say touched by an actinic theoplasma, happily bought about in daylight and are perhaps strongest at noon. If you are dead but uplifted by green, that's the Ringyu's blessing. The crown growth offers a similar but nastier benefit. This is how burgeoning risen come about, but there are different degrees of sentience and freedom depending on which growths are involved. The consciousness of one uplifted by green is always greatly altered, though. They never really seem like the same person. They have dregs of their original souls, but these are often replaced by something else. The upshot, invariably, is that they need to be set firmly on fire. The wonderful shape, blessings, and invocations of the triple knot recorded at a sanctuary in Cyprus notable for its weavers, sculptors, and gardeners. The roots go deep, the knots remain. The final invocation is one for the restoration of the roots to be spoken before an altar of the triple knot. But puzzlingly, it should not be spoken by any priestess of the knot, or even by one who has been initiated into their mysteries. And The Crossing to Noon, the mystic Garcia Sauri gives a picturesque account of the adventures of Franklin Bancroft, Prince of Wines, and Ava de Wolf, the Pale Lady, on their way to the hidden island of Noon. For a long time, the Blackbone pondered her next move, until the moon dared to peep from behind a cloud, and the prince completed the composition of his third sestina, but the lady met the blind gaze of its open pores, waiting for the tide. Garcia Sauri acknowledges in an epilogue that it is widely known that Ava in fact tragically drowned herself and her twin infant granddaughters without ever making such a journey, but he adds contemptuously, it is also widely known that the city unbuilt will so remain, that only one history is ever written, and that Janus is a Mansus prank. Alright, so again, we're not going to do anything at desks, we're just going to wait for all of these items to come in on time. It's late. Another time? It actually occurred to me that I don't think I'll have enough time to do both overnight. I'll pay to get the element of the soul back, I think. The Skeleton Songs, poems of greedy delight composed by the possibly pseudonymous Arbella Dusk, the rumored heiress turned madam turned poetess. In Arbella's introduction, she explains that the book was to be illustrated, but that the Suppression Bureau would not permit it. She hints that the illustrations still exist somewhere. The book is dedicated to Sir Parzival of the Red Cup. The 26 delightful fruits, the 7 chastisements, the 9 gardens, the 4 regrets. Skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. Perugian Diaries. In 1907, at the age of 18, Christopher Lopoli left Strathcoyne's household to study theology at the University of Perugia in Italy, enrolling under the name Christopher Strathcoyne. For 4 years since his adoption from a Bristol orphanage, Alopoli served as Strathcoin's pupil and protege, but his relationship with this austere and secretive man was always complicated. His journal confides, "I still think Fraser's intentions are good, certainly he agrees, but I never understood the final goal of his investigations. He was never prepared to enlighten me, and good intentions or not, I can no longer bear the stream of eyes. We've agreed to part almost amicably." Alopoli left Perugia in 1909 without completing his degree. He had long lost interest in his studies, and the latter half of his journal is concerned with his studies of Umbrian folk songs and notes towards his own compositions, which are of widely varying quality. One of the better ones, In the Marshes of Night, suggests he had visited the site of Old Lake Furcinus near Ortuccio. And finally, Apollo and Marsyas, the libretto of a lost opera concerning the contest between Apollo and Marsyas and its tragic outcome. The librettist is identified only by their initials. In the original myth, Marsyas lost the musical contest and was flayed by Apollo, who later regretted it. In this version, Marsyas' skin has a further history. The skin of Marsyas gives oracles and is later smuggled to Phrygia, where the priestesses of Cybele use it for a drum. At the climax, the striking of the drum drives would-be violators of the priestess to suicidal madness. The opera ends with a wistful hymn from the youngest priestess on the beauty of mountain pines. Okay. So the top priority is to get Desires and Dissolutions up. That's the one that takes the most effort. So we'll toss the core in there. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. And I'm going to keep the cheerful ditty in this case, because that one we're not going to... It's not going to be replaced by a... by another memory from someone like Denzel. Move gingerly while the pain lasts. Had I been thinking, I probably could have found a way to use the Curious Hunch as well. Skill is now level 7. Its power aspects have also increased. Okay, so I suspect this means that we will not have the tryst in the morning. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. Mind you, given the fact that we overdid it on lessons, I actually think we did all right as far as using the... taking advantage of the opportunities we had. But yeah, so we're going to be short a tryst. Now that might be one that we need as part of the salon. So one of the things I'm going to do here really quick, I wanted to make sure that I left myself a bunch of notes, but I want to try and clean this up a little bit. And on a similar note, so Desires and Dissolutions is at 7, which I think might have been where I was taking it, but yeah. So I'm going to take that off the list. Sorry, I realize erasing things in silence is not the most exciting to listen to. So the snow stories have been used up. It doesn't mean that I'm done with putrefactions and calcinations, but that's another one I can get off the list. We've used our door and wall, so I'm fine with that too. So yeah, histories, sorry, Inks of Power. That goes to Stone Stories. Edicts Liminal, I think we've already determined is going to be Resurgences and Emergences. And then for the Grail and Knock, guess it's pentiments and precursors. Now, I would like to, where I can, I'd like to rearrange the memories. But before I do that, we've got 13 seconds, so I'll restore at the Sweet Bones when I can. We are going to bring Denzel in for the memories. I will now send out the letters. Stamp, envelope, send. And it's a sunny day. Don't really think that does too much for me, to be honest, but Denzel rarely works for free, but he won't take payment for helping a friend. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So if I had a couple of sky things to work with, I'd be okay. As it is, I don't think either of these are relevant to what I'm looking for right now, which is fine. Our focus is going to be the salon, so anything else is really just a bonus. All right, so not worried about restoring the shaft, but I definitely want to bring back the tryst. So it is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. It's gonna take a while for me to get past my. You know what? Yeah, we'll just do 3 pence here. Maybe traveling at night will contain a pronunciation guide for people like me who don't know how to say half the stuff in the game. Okay. We're in pretty good shape. The one small challenge I will usually run into here will be I clearly am not going to need all of these elements of the soul for the salon. It's not clear what we need yet. Now, I guess one of the things that's sort of nice is that I can take for the so as part of the salon, one of the things that I can do is as we start getting to the point where we know we're safe with certain elements of the soul, even if I don't know what we're putting things towards, like in terms of the memories that we generate during the salon, I could actually start working towards things like this stone stories and resurgences and emergences and so on and so forth. In fact, one thing I could do with my shaft right now is read the Cosley book again, because we're going to need that for stone stories. So I think I've just talked myself into that. I believe I need 6 for each of them. Now, I've never had a salon where it's the same element of the soul every single time, but that's sort of the theoretical maximum. So, and we did this in the previous salon, but the idea here would be let's say we knock one down, right? So we've got the salon, everything's going by. We've now committed one of the elements of the soul. That means there's 5 left, and so that would mean that I can take a shaft and a fet and metal, actually, and I can apply them to whatever task I had them for. And then another, and then of course the health is they're all the free agents. But yeah, so from there I could say, okay, so we've got another event that went by, Now, obviously, some of them were... So, like, if it's Fost a couple of times, it's like, okay, now we really feel like we're running short. But the idea here is that I don't need to keep, like, 6 in reserve through the whole Salon. And I do intend to sort of run it that way. Whether I succeed is another question, but... Oh, sorry, there was one other thing that I wanted to do, which was to rearrange the... Oh, Lord. Okay, this is going to get moved up. Actually, so is this at some point. We're getting there. Clearly, I'm missing something. Well, I think I already said that I want to level up putrefactions and calcinations even further, so... I'll try not to do this too often, but this is not a bad time for me to just try and make this all make sense. Okay, so yes, this I am reasonably happy with. We need to move desires and dissolutions. I think that's it. I'm sure I'll find other ways of spoiling that, but yeah, there we go. He does a lot with silence, this man. Speak to Denzel, he might even reply. So right now we're really just waiting on the guests to arrive for the salon. I realize I'm not going to have a whole lot of time for the salon, but I am going to try and at least start it. Maybe we'll finish it. 7 minutes is not a lot of time. I might actually be willing to fast forward a bit for this. Okay. To be honest, this isn't a bad start towards the stone stories. We've got 3 of the 7 I was looking for. Better now. Okay. So this is going to be a bit of a weird one. I'm going to restore the shaft first, and that's because, again, I need the 6 set aside first. Towards a fundamental aesthetic, or the House of Glass. Julian Cosley considered this as masterwork. Techniques for perception and analysis which permit invidious and apocalyptic conclusions. Probably the most assiduously suppressed book in history. The entire run was destroyed, even the presses were melted and dispersed, but the manuscript edition has survived. The perfect hegemony of the hours is perhaps eternal, but Cosley proposes and describes confinement inescapable, aesthetic and optical techniques which might contain even an hour, profoundly disrupting the order of the Mansis. He presents this as his own work, but there are hints here and there that he received inspiration or even assistance from the nowhere hour named Snow. Okay, so I'm going to put these down by Inks of Power. I'm definitely warming up to the idea of putting this towards stone stories. I'm going to need to interact with the potted plant at some point. But, okay. And now we just wait for the afternoon. I wasn't such a stickler on the salon. I actually have a suspicion that I could we clean all these up. But I don't know, I like keeping the options open. Okay, so we have invited Lalakaima, Huntress Gourmet Occasional Bureau Consultant. When it can't be killed and it really needs killing, Kaima is the one that they turn to. D.I. Douglas Moore, Detective Illuminate of the Suppression Bureau. A stoic but weary fellow, his dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. Princess Kokil Amarajibi, artist, socialite, burglar, an unspeakably charming woman with a particular knack for getting adopted. Senior Corso Reverti, manuscript hunter, legacy scavenger, mercenary. Many would question his ethics, few would deny his acuteness. And Mr. Zachary Wakefield, marksman, detective, renegade. He has always been a quiet man, but since he left the Suppression Bureau, he has grown even quieter and terribly still, except for his fingers and for his eyes, always in restless motion. They will be enjoying scrambled egg. With bacon, scrambled eggs were the breakfast of empire. In these less hegemonic times, empire is optional, as is bacon. A stuffed acrid marrow. This was not a marrow conducive to harmony. Now it's a dish for warriors. A jugged pheasant, the hunter's reward. Roast potatoes. You really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately, the kitchen garden at Hush House has never been short on rosemary. And orange jumble. They should be the size of teacup rims and should curl their crisp edges faintly pink as the underneath of a young mushroom. Lady Jekyll Kitchen Essays. Cater and Hero Second Flush Assam, tea from the land of the real unicorn imported by Cater and Hero, Isle Water from Brankrug's Deep Springs, and Witching to Sane to mend a broken heart, to color a pale soul. And they will be enjoying our salon in the Hall of Division. Bring light back to the mirrors where once Lady Ava held court. My guests take their places for lunch. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing you an extra interaction between your guests, plus time remaining. He does a lot with silence, this man. This will be the one thing that gets in the way of the salon is the Denzel interaction. Well, sorry, and the Sweet Bones. Instinct and Emotion, add a Tryst card. So this frees up the Shapt, the Fet, and the Metal. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is interact with the plant. Savage Hymn should be up next. Actually, let me just work this out, because it's stone stories, so... Okay, so fear... hindsight... Inescapable confinement. Savage him. Impulse. Scent. And I think it was going to be the... I believe I was going to use the... Sorry, the old moment. Excuse me. But it's not clear to me. Well, I could try the revelation. Okay, actually, I might have something. Won't take lantern though. Maybe. Right, but I can't add the show. Oh, well, I can add it under. Okay, yep, that works. So, next element of the soul is an impulse, and then I'm good to go. Zachary and Kaima talk about how it is when the hunt ends, the uneasy space before the next begins. Lesson Ragged Crossroads. Conversation ebbs and flows. Ask about dreams. Add a FET card. So this, again, frees up the metal and the shaft. With that, I'm going to bring in the impulse. I guess technically I could do that at the end because Denzel may generate one of those for me. He does a lot with silence, this man. Kaima and Zachary discuss regrets, one hunter to another ragged crossroads. A sense of awareness persists, but the plant remains immobile, unsettling but harmless. It doesn't even have thorns. I'm really going to try and get through the salon before wrapping up tonight, but I do realize we still have some more to do. Invite a challenge, add a metal card. Alright, so Shapt, Whist, Fet, and Core just got freed up. So that's actually quite a bit for us to work with. Now, one thing I can do here, once the old moment is done, we can use the health to level up Stone Stories right away. In fact, I'll just make the space for that. What I may want to consider is trying to set aside something for Whist. Clearly I did something wrong. Surely I didn't. Oh, hang on. No, sorry. It was Disciplines of the Scar. Okay. Yeah, let me just double check here. So we've got Savage him. Wait a minute. Right, impulse. I've already got the scent. Okay. So from there, yeah, so the interesting part of this is the ragged crossroads, because we've already established that, or I'm pretty sure anyway, Edge is one of those ones where I don't need to level anything up, so this is more putrefactions and calcinations if I want. So I think there's two things I can do here. So one, I can pursue some winter, but second of all, what I can do is I can pursue winter and moon that doesn't like I can use the ones that don't that Denzel can't potentially generate. So an obvious candidate there would be Black Book of Brittany. Sorry, I'm really blanking here. We have got the Devoured Tantra. So there's the salt. And should be at least one more move. Oh yeah, Ascendant. Okay, so that allows us to use what we get from the Salon as well as... so the thing that's nice about this is that I'm leveling up Stone Stories before the Salon is finished, and then I should be able to level up putrefactions and putrefactions and calcinations, similar boat, and then I should hopefully be able to get at least one more by the end of the Salon. Douglas and Kaima are enjoying a very practical conversation about what to do when someone bites you, what to do when something bites you, and what to do when someone bites something else. Lessons stitching and binding. I suspect I'm going to wind up using that heart. He does a lot with silence, this man. So I say in my youth, day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. The Singlefoot Songs. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time in the slopes of Huashan, near to the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations with the grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The Singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The Singlefoots sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become Singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. All right, so again, focusing our attention on the Salon. Mansis Tales, ask about dreams. Which reminds me... Okay, we're at 3 for everything, so we're good there. Douglas turns to Coquille and shakes his head sadly. Warned out for you. If you leave early, I'll give you a head start, but Sergeant Heaton's already picked up your driver at the Sweet Bones. You'll have to try the cliffs. He watches as Coquille's eyes widen, waits for a count of 3, and says with great satisfaction, "Oh no, I was thinking of someone else." After that, the two of them get on very well indeed. So surgeries and exsanguinations, again, the heart will probably be the most practical benefit. 26 enticements, 7 torments. The painter, Niels Frederick Malsker, notoriously attempted a series of paintings based on the torments. By the 5th torment, the demands of the painting had grown so dire he died of blood loss. The diagrams in this text are thankfully less detailed. The enticements of the Grail outnumber its torments, but its torments are its final nature. Birth is the 1st torment, and thirst the 7th. Through the enumeration of the Grail's enticements and torments winds the sorrowful history of the witches of the dry land, the ordeal of birth from 2 wombs, their struggle from and supplication of the Grail, the yearning for union which drives them all. So here we're just waiting on the old moment. Not going to do anything else with that right now. Coquille and Douglas are not friends. Not quite. Inject a little gaiety. Add a core card. Okay, so from there, Arab, Metal, Faust, Shaft, Trist, and Whist. Let's not mix that. Ooh, Stolen Secret. Alright, so I'm going to wait for the old moment to finish just because it's close enough. Although at this point I should actually be thinking a little bit more about... Oof. Okay, so it's going to be putrefactions and calcinations. So what I'm going to do now, we'll say 1 whist here. This next point, I'm going to go so far as to say anything goes. So if it's got a winter or a moon aspect, I'll consider it. So we're already getting a confounding parable. I'm going to try and bypass that for now. We're now into the Fallen Cross. So that's regret. We won't need to worry about the Heinz. Sorry, we did ablations in iron. 7 shards. It's definitely tricky to navigate. Actually, we're out of desks. Okay, so I can use the impulses here. Okay, we'll see how that goes. Checked a little gaiety. With keeper level scale, not lantern, an old moment can lead to an earthquake name. Okay, so this was the big one for today, so I'm happy that we got that. At last, I approach mastery. And if I'm so inclined... Right. It's not about inclination, it's about available desks. Although I could use the health It's tempting. So what... I guess the question here is for putrefactions and calcinations, what do I think I haven't incorporated yet? I guess at this point we know we'll have a hindsight, so I could do... Yeah, actually that's the answer. I clearly am already reading something for hindsight, so I can shut the hell up. Yeah, okay. Then... Good lord. I think I'm just gonna sit on it. Kaima and Douglas are discussing Ilse Bischoff's experimental film, The Open Head. I saw it in Alexandria, Kaima offers. I think perhaps she was moved by a dream of the Chandler, that when it emerges, it will emerge from war, and from knowledge unwisely shared. Douglas sucks on his pipe. Mrs. M wanted to see it, he says morosely. She likes that Brunel, too. He sucks on his pipe again. I don't like that Brunel. Alright, so this is the point where we kind of need to figure out what we're doing with the rest of the day. The Black Book of Brittany, a volume of inklore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The black flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deep, and they may not remain hidden forever. The black flower, spoken of as a doom or guise, can be held at bay with the last ink of power, brewed from the pale mixture, in the presence of sufficient winter with the arts of containment. We also need to wait for the salon to finish for these ones. To a Pale Lady, a collection of Franklin Bancroft's letters to Ava de Wolfe. There is a substantial body of erotic pleading and half-finished poetry, but also learned discursions on matters mythical and marine, as well as notes towards a comic opera on which Franklin and Ava were apparently collaborating. Do not return, O my light, to the sea. None of us can be what we were, that is history's curse. None of us can know what we may be, that is history's gift. Your mothers and your mothers of your mothers are caught in eternity's jobs like a robe hem in a trap. It is the pearl that shines, but the tide that returns. The Devoured Tantra, the diplomat priest Stanislav John Schaller transcribed this from the library of Red Long, but his manuscript remains in a private collection in Karasham. The Devoured Tantra warns of the uses and dangers of appetite, but devotes an entire passage to the star-limbed hunger-bringers who it describes with obvious affection. A million blazing fires that in the belly engulf what has been swallowed by the multiform mouths. And the Ascendant, the edgelong Dardish, boasts of her victories over her brother enemy Tareg in the days of the Shadowless Empire. Sweeter than wine, than nectar is the blood of my brother. We've raised up armies one against another. We have sated the black bone with the sinking of our ships. Dardish's boasting at length turns melancholy. An edgelong is half a dyad. She may not defeat her hated brother enemy without ending herself. She doesn't even want to, but she is aware, to her frustration, that she is a piece on the board, an axle on the ox cart, an essential part of the eternal engine of contention which the Lionsmith and Colonel used to sustain the world. So this is really the point where I should decide so I think a bittersweet... Actually, let's just repeat all of these. So... Bittersweet certainty. Salt. Technically, I could use the health to read the others. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. We may not even have the time at the end, but... Ask about dreams. Okay. So again, we free up a bunch. I think at this point, I'm short on desks. Oh, no, we've got one more here. So that would mean contradiction. The funny thing is here, I may not even have, at this point I may actually, I may not have the time or the resources available, but what else am I going to use it for, right? You know, I suppose I could maybe go to, I think I could probably do Crowcross Sands maybe, but I don't know. At this point, we'll stick with this. If nothing else, I'll learn something. Does a lot with silence, this man. Yeah, this also counts. Oh, no tuppence, no beer. No benefit to me. Yeah, so there's no reason for me to actually follow through on that because I'm not going to be able to earn the money now that we've got the bells and the birds. The conversation dwelt on the great signs and great scars. Okay, the skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. So, we immediately want to follow up with... No, we can't because we don't have the lessons yet. We should be wrapping up soon. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory. So I realize this is basically a double feature tonight, but... Okay. A lively salon. Satisfaction. That may actually help us. Curious hunch, which we technically already had. Great signs and great scars. Disciplines of the scar. Surgeries and exsanguinations. Stitching and binding. Ragged crossroads. Ragged crossroads. So, first things first. Let's take the putrefactions and calcinations. Add a whist. Ragged crossroads. 1, 2, 3, 4. So satisfying to have come so far. Okay, so theoretically I would need 5 for the next one. So there's 1. I guess the other thing that I could do here, if we've got the satisfaction, then I could combine that with one of these scales, which technically we'll already be getting. I could use that for the pentiments and precursors. But we'll see what happens after the 30 seconds goes by. I'll try one more. Maybe not a tryst, though. Alright, so the idea behind this is that I might be able to bang out a quick pentiments and precursors. The Fallen Cross, in which Julian Cosley, Magus Immortal, occasional anarchist, argues that through language the Carapace Cross decayed to seed the lives of our ancestors. Speech is a wound, silence is silver. There is no silver door, nor can there be, even in the House of the Moon. Without language there can be no words, without words there can be no message, but only in silence can there be no error, and lo, even in that beginning, in that first of messages, an error, thus did we enter the house. 7 shards. The Lionsmith, one of the 2 great hours of struggle, broke his sword into 7 shards. Natalia Brulot, 5th librarian of Hush House, describes the nature of each of those shards, allegorically and otherwise. The 3rd shard has then been identified with the Cry of Pain. The Lionsmith is a stoic hour, but we must assume that in the sundering moment, even he might have been unable to restrain his distress. Now the sound of tin under pressure we call the Tin Cry, a reason perhaps for further identification of the 3rd shard as the Shard Royal. The 7th shard we call informally the Invincible Audacity, which is struck from the winning move as the winning move is struck from a memory with the application of sufficient edge. And the Concursum Diaries, the diaries of the explorer and murderer Lars Westergren. He's unhelpfully translated them into Frisian for privacy. There are map legends, there are maps of legends, and there are legends of maps. Aspects of the Mansis subsist in all of these, in much the same way that you could find water in a swamp and in a cup and in the sky. Westergren describes a series of expeditions into the Mansis. He focuses on the details of the experience, the colors, the vistas, the textures, rather than the practicalities. He does warn that the Mansis changes each year, although he assures the reader that the doors have been the same. Doors may close, but they never disappear, at least not while there have been mortals in the Mansis. We're like mice. So we should be good for the putrefactions and calcinations. The question is if I'm going to be able to get any other memories in. So at this point here, I think I can just call it for the elements of the soul. We'll have something, obviously we'll have a big surplus left over, but right now I just want to see what we can get. I think if I'm willing to give up an element of the soul. Right, Musgrave sketches. Musgrave, 4th Baron Brandkrug, was widely mocked as the Bleating Baron in the Lambda Wolf, but these sketches reveal a complex, somber inner life. Art begins in colors, grows dappled, finally is either mostly darkness or mostly light. Musgrave discusses the temptation of the perfectly minimal palest painting. He has so far managed to resist this temptation, but does guiltily describe success in using sights and sensations with winter aspect to create first a chilly elixir from flowers, which he believes he can refine further into a final pigment. Deaths of the Moon, a historical tract on various forms of survival after death. When the heart no longer beats, the Grail may keep the spirit in the body, and an appetite is indicated to sustain. Alukites are the best known, but not the only of this nature. This is the waning moon mode. The full moon mode is the intensification of one element of the soul to the point where ordinary sustention is unstable. Our protector, the generous of hosts, began of this nature, and its generosity remains ungentle. It is possible for the body's health or the heart's core to outpace the other elements, so that a static mode becomes impossible, and growth proceeds in dramatic stages until balance remanifests. So again, really more memories than I know what to do with at this point, but... The Origins of Hours. The sage and ecstatic Soham, a frequent visitor to the Mansis, claims to have discoursed with the beach crow in person. Soham later insisted on a sky burial. Soham's writings veer from poetry to confession. He identifies from flesh, those who were mortal, from blood, those who arose from sacrifice, from light, entry from the glory, and from stone, those who arose before his knowledge. He insists that the moth was the first god who was blood, but later contradicts himself and claims it was the Red Grail. Okay, so I know, like I said, it's basically a double bill tonight, but I do want to make sure I clean all this up. Honey, the Comprehensive Guide. Harvey Haddington, pilot, polymath, confectioner, writes with great enthusiasm about the marvelous work of the bee. Haddington insists that all the primary aspects, nectar, scale, heart, lantern, moth, grail, are possessed by bees and expressed in honey. Clearly, he points out, there are only 6 primary aspects, as honeycomb has only 6 angles. Ugal ink is prepared with these techniques, but so is Skinshuck mead, and only Skinshuck requires honey. Just as any beverage or foodstuff can be improved with the addition of honey, so any garden is improved with the presence of bees, even those bloody blumberendi. Skill is now level 5, its power aspects have also increased. Okay, so let's get you higher. So, Ragged Crossroads, Bittersweet Certainty for sure. The rest of these really are open to just about anything. So, Regret, don't want to use up the Hindsight quite yet. Let's do the Stolen Secret. And contradiction. Oh, need one more. So salt. Okay, so at this point, whatever memories I have are it. So I think the way I'm going to handle this is I will take the hindsight and get a quick pediments and precursors out of this. Sorry, just anticipating the arrival of putrefactions and calcinations. But yeah, so if I use this for pentiments and precursors, the other option I have would be something... I mean, this lets me do heart. We've got 2, 3. Actually, you know what? Maybe I can leave this. So clearly I've got some memories to work with. I have some cleanup to do on my list anyway, but I think anything longer and I'm being unkind. So I will leave it here. Thank you for hanging out with me for the extended episode. I'm going to try and record some more for tomorrow. But I will have a flight that I need to catch. So this could be the last one of the big batch that I did. Either way, I will be sure. It's probably been long enough with these that I should probably just prepare. The plan right now is to just do to do a slower release cadence for these things. I've recorded a whole bunch in advance. We should be getting closer to September at this point, and I will be back September. I think it originally said September 1st, but that is a holiday in Canada, and I also don't know when my flight arrives, so it might be that I do something that week. But either way, I will be back. There will be regular updates on in September, and for the rest of it, depends on how many episodes I get recorded on this very sleepless night. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.